Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Reika and I am your host. I hope you're having a great day as you are listening to this podcast. If you are a new listener, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in today and trying this podcast out. And if you are a regular listener, I want to say thank you so much for coming on and tuning in again. I have couple of announcements before we get started on this week's podcast episode. First of all, as I am recording this on Sunday, December 1st, my birthday was yesterday, which was Saturday, December 20th, and I turned 38 years old. I was able to hang out the day with my sister. We went to go hiking, hiked 9 miles in the beautiful mountains, and had some picnic, had dinner with her family, celebrated with a delicious strawberry shortcake. So I had a beautiful day, and I want to say thank you to everybody who messaged and reached out to say happy birthday. It was a really full year for me. Well, I know this is not a end of the year wrap up, but my birthday do fall on end of the year, so I always like to think of my year around this time, and I had a really full year. I had my first yoga retreat in Nicaragua. That was a success. I also led my first 200 hours Smart Flow teacher training at the beginning of the year, which was such a great experience. And I also got to travel to Japan, and Japan is somewhere I've been wanting to go for a long time, and to be able to do that trip and do a pilgrimage hiking trip, walking and hiking for 7 days straight was probably the highlight of that trip. So thinking back, it was a good year. I am very, very grateful for all that I was able to do this year, all the people who was in my life and supported me and who make up my beautiful community. So I want to say it was a good year, and I hope you're also taking this time to reflect back on the year and celebrate the things you have done, accomplished, and really give yourself a pat on the back rather than thinking it wasn't enough or you didn't do enough. I hope you give yourself a pat on the back even for the smallest wins. That's a practice of Santosha, really appreciating where we are and finding gratitude of all the things that we already have, and really finding a true appreciation and gratitude to our life, which is such a beautiful thing and almost a miracle that we get to live our life. And if you're yoga teachers, to be able to teach yoga, what a gift that we get to do that. So that was my little reflection on my birthday. So let's get started on the announcement. Announcement number 1 is that my Nicaragua yoga retreat for 2026 is now open for registration. Right now it is on early bird discount. Early bird discount will happen until January 7th. So go check out the link on the show notes. This is a week-long yoga retreat in Nicaragua. It's northern part of Nicaragua. It's on the coast, so northern Pacific side. It's on the beach. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and it's also almost a hidden. It's a less well-known and less traveled area of Nicaragua, which makes that area very special, in my opinion. You're going to be staying in a beautiful retreat center where you will wake up to the sound of waves. There's 2 beautiful beaches, almost like a private beaches, it feels like, that is a walking distance from the retreat center. The yoga shala happens among the banyan tree where you have the view of the ocean. You get to hear the sound of waves as you're practicing yoga. It's almost like this open air yoga shala. And there's of course a pool on the property, and you are just surrounded by nature. And every day we will practice vinyasa yoga in the morning, yin and restorative yoga in the evening. It's called Ethical Yoga Retreat Aligned with Purpose, because every day the yoga practice, the activities, the philosophy discussions is going to be purposefully intentioned around the theme of aligning with your purpose. And there's a lot of journaling questions and journaling prompts that you can follow along if you choose to. It's a great time to kind of step back, step away from your busy day-to-day life, and really check in with who you are at the core center. By utilizing practices of yoga and philosophy and teachings of yoga, we try to tap into who we truly are. And that's kind of the theme. And it's called Ethical Yoga Retreat because part of the money you pay for the retreat to sign up for the retreat will go straight to the nonprofit organization that is working and doing amazing work on site in the small fishing village that we are staying at. And there will be some volunteer activities as part of the activities that you can participate, like volunteering at a local after-school program for children, as well as art workshop where local women can teach us how to make a beautiful arts and craft with local natural materials we can find in the area. So I'm super excited for this retreat. It was such a great retreat last year, and I cannot wait to go back and share this beautiful space, this beautiful retreat with next group of people. If you have listened to the episode where I did a retreat recap with Joe, who was my helper for the retreat, we talk about all the things that went well, all the things and little tweaks that we are going to update and make we're going to update and improve for the next retreat. So I just cannot wait for how the next retreat is going to be, what kind of group is going to come together for that. So the rooms and the number of beds are limited, so I really encourage you to sign up before the early birds end. Retreat date will be July 25th through August 1st, 1 week in Nicaragua. It's going to be so much fun, so I hope you can make it. If you have any questions, just message me and I can answer all the questions for you. Next announcement is that application for my mentorship program for 2026 is now open. So if you are a yoga teachers listening to this podcast who would like to join a community of yoga teachers, it's almost like a family, sangha of yoga teachers who come together, who is curious about continue to learn and deepen their knowledge in yoga, philosophy, anatomy, art of teaching. So this is a great group for you to join if you want to continue learning and continue improving your skill sets as a yoga teacher. Once a month, we have a Yoga Sutra study where we meet and go through Yoga Sutra one by one of chapter 1 and chapter 2. We also have monthly pranayama and meditation class. We also have a practice teaching session that you can sign up for that you'll receive a feedback from me as well as fellow yoga teachers on the group. There's also a monthly workshop with guest teachers for module 1 of 2026, which is January to April of 2026. We have 4 exciting guest teachers. Number 1, Diana May, who has been a repeated guest on the podcast and also repeated guest teacher on my mentorship program. She's coming to teach a workshop on pain science for yoga teachers. And our second workshop she's going to teach is going to be a little bit more around the business side and social media side because she had a great success on that. If you listen to the last podcast we recorded together, she shared all about her Instagram, growing her Instagram journey, which has been so fascinating and exciting to witness and just celebrate alongside her. And we also have Amy Echo. I also interviewed her on my podcast. She has been my teacher for quite some time, and I have a huge respect for her of the longevity in this yoga world to continue teaching. She is an authorized Ashtanga teacher, only authorized Ashtanga teacher in Long Beach, but she's also a certified yoga therapist through Desikachar Krishnamacharya lineage. So she brings this unique perspective of yoga therapy as well as Ashtanga yoga teacher, and she has extensive training of yoga philosophy and chanting under her belt. So I am so excited that I get to bring my teacher on to teach a workshop on yoga philosophy. So 1 month will be my teacher Amy teaching a workshop on yoga philosophy. And then last guest teacher for this module is Casey. He was also a guest on my podcast. He was a meditation teacher that I interviewed. He's actually going to be teaching a workshop on Eightfold Path in Buddhism. That is his expertise. And I want him to teach us about Eightfold Path, and we can compare it with 8 limbs of yoga. There are some similarities, there are some differences. There are probably going to be contextual differences as well, but I think it'll be really fun to learn the foundation of Buddhism and philosophy of Buddhism, because there are commonality between yoga philosophy and Buddhist philosophy, and I think we can learn a lot from Buddhism as well. And I love the way Casey teaches. He is my meditation teacher at this moment, and I just think he has so much to offer and share to the world. So I am bringing in all the amazing teachers that I trust and love to my mentorship program, and I'm so excited for this upcoming module. All that to say, join my mentorship program if you're a yoga teacher. Even if you're not teaching currently, maybe you just finished your 200-hour teacher training, or some of you have your 200 already but haven't taught in a while. All of you are welcome to this mentorship program. Or if you've been teaching for 5-10 years, you're also welcome to this mentorship program. I think learning never ends as a yoga teacher, no matter where you are in your teaching journey. I think the teachers that I look up to and respect is teachers who never stopped learning, who is curious. They are seeker. They want to continue learning. They want to continue to be the best teacher that they can be. And I think that desire to learn and desire to be in community so that we can uplift one another, that is special. And that is what I'm hoping to create in this mentorship program. So I'll put the link to the application form on the show notes. So I hope you can apply, and you'll receive an email from me once you apply with more details. So all the information you need will be on the show notes. So go check those links out. So let's get started on today's episode. Today I got to interview Amanda for my podcast. Amanda is a host of a podcast called MBOM, Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I've been listening to her podcast for a really long time. She was one of the few yoga podcasts that was out there back in the day when I started teaching yoga. Mado, who I interviewed recently, her podcast was out there. Amanda's MBOM was out there. Andrea Ferretti's Yogaland was out there. And also Jay Brown Yoga Talk Show, which Jay I got to interview as well. And also Francesca. Oh my God. So I'm kind of excited that I got to interview all this OG yoga podcaster from back in the day. It's been really fun to talk to them and bring them on as a guest on my podcast. So because they have been the inspiration for me to start this podcast. So we talk all about her business, her podcasting, her traveling. What makes Amanda unique, in my opinion, is that she has been traveling around as she works as a yoga teacher or a yoga mentor, one-on-one coach. She worked as a manager for yoga studio. She's a guest teacher for different teacher trainings. So she have worked in different aspects of yoga world, and she was able to do so as she traveled and lived in different countries with her husband. So that is super interesting and inspiring for me, because that is something I would love to do. So, and she actually made it happen. That is her life. So I think her story is unique and super inspiring. So I hope you enjoy this conversation I had with Amanda, and I will speak to you on the other side. Welcome, Amanda, to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. I'm so excited that I get to have this conversation with you. I just want to say quickly to the listeners that Amanda is a host of a yoga podcast called MBOM, and it's been around for quite some time, and I feel like it's one of the first few yoga-related podcasts I started listening to when I was a newer yoga teacher, and it has helped me so much in my teaching journey. So I was very excited when she said yes to come on this show, come on to Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast to share about her yoga journey. So thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me. And maybe start with letting the listeners know, where are you currently logging in from and joining from? And also, where are you originally from?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, and thanks for being a longtime listener of MBOM. It's always like cool to connect with somebody face to face who's listened to the podcast and felt the impact of the work I've done. So thank you. I am originally from just outside of Calgary, Alberta, in Canada, and I'm currently based in a city in central Mexico called Querétaro, and I've lived here for the last 4 years.
And where you said central Mexico, is that close to Mexico City?
Like 3 hours north of Mexico City.
Okay. Wow. And you said you've been there for 4 years?
Yeah, I've lived in this city in Mexico for 4 years.
Okay. I definitely want to get to asking you questions about that. But I feel like I know a little bit about your background from listening to your podcast for a long time. But for listeners who's not familiar with you, I would love to kind of start from the beginning. What made you want to become a yoga teacher? And when was that? What year was that when you first took your 200?
Yeah, so I did my first 200 in 2015, and I'd been practicing yoga for, I guess, maybe like 8 years at that point, kind of off and on. I started when I was in university and just as a way to exercise and decompress. And it was really after I finished university, so 2011-ish, when I was working full-time corporate, when I really started feeling the benefits of yoga that were not just physical. And I feel like that's when it really started to land with me that like maybe I would want to teach this at some point. And I just felt like I wasn't ready. I felt like I didn't know enough like advanced poses. I was like, I can't do a headstand. Like I certainly can't be a yoga teacher at this point. And so I waited a little bit. And I think that this is what happens with a lot of people who feel that kind of draw or call to become a yoga teacher is they kind of like wait until they're ready, quote unquote. But fast forward, I had been traveling in South America for 6 months and returned to Canada. And I decided not to go back to corporate. And so my now husband and I, we were just dating at the time. We moved to a little mountain town outside of Calgary. And we decided to get jobs that were just like not corporate, just would pay the bills, something that would let us explore the things that we were excited about kind of outside of work, basically, like see like what our interests were. And so I was working for Lululemon and I started managing a yoga studio part-time and I was practicing a lot. And I put it on my goals. Lululemon's really big on goals. And so I put it on my goals. It was a 5-year goal to do my yoga teacher training. And my manager was like, why is this a 5-year goal for you? Like, this is something you should do now. And I was like, no, I feel like I'm not ready. Again, still, I'm not ready. She said, I'll give you a month off. We'll hold your job. She's like, you go do the teacher training you want to do. And I was like, oh, okay, that seems like pretty cool. And so I traveled to Bali and did a 200-hour in 2015. Yeah.
Amazing that Lululemon, is so encouraging and, will hold your job for a month. Like, I love how they were so supportive and encouraging of that.
Yeah, for sure. I felt like really supported by that goal. And I think it was a cool thing that that manager like provided and offered, for me. It was a month unpaid, but it was still like I didn't have to quit my job. I still had my like full-time role as an educator, which was cool. So I came back to a job and yeah, that really kind of kickstarted things for me. I came back and started teaching just a little bit here and there, as many like teaching gigs as I could get. And I feel like when I actually started like thinking about the podcast and being a yoga teacher in the business of yoga was, I guess, maybe 6 months later. My husband accepted a job in Atlanta, Georgia. And so we moved down there and I knew nobody. So this was, the biggest city I'd ever lived in at that time. And I was trying to approach studios and trying to find gigs to start teaching and start teaching full time. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that my teacher training didn't teach me. And so I was pulling from my business background because that was my background in corporate and just kind of like, oh, okay, you need like a yoga teacher resume. Cool. I can send that to you later tonight. Or like, oh, teaching demo. Like, that sounds interesting. What is that about? Just kind of like figuring it out. And so that's really where my podcast was born. It was kind of like hey, like people are doing this, like kind of like what you, I think maybe what you're doing with your podcast as well, like kind of looking at like, hey, people are successful at this. People are building businesses. People have, you know, financially sustainable careers doing this. Like, can I learn from them so I can teach not only myself, but also the people coming behind me? And so that's really where I started was like, hey, how are people doing this if I'm getting paid like $35 for class? How am I going to do this in a way that can pay my bills and in a way that, you know, doesn't burn me out and in a way that like feels sustainable and successful and all those things. And so that's really what kind of birthed MBOM or Mastering the Business of Yoga. And yeah, I launched that at the beginning of 2016. I was
Wow,
still like a pretty new,
2016.
ages ago and still pretty new yoga teacher at that point.
Yeah. Okay. I have so much to ask questions about. What was your major in college that got you the first corporate job before you became a yoga teacher?
Yeah, so I have a Bachelor of Commerce with a major in marketing.
So did you feel like that's kind of where you were headed and you wanted to work in your career, you wanted to be in that world?
It's a great question. I feel like I was just kind of on like the conveyor belt of life where it was like, hey, you know, I've finished high school and the expectations that I get a college degree now. And so I need
Yeah.
to pick something that I want to do. And I feel like business kind of came out of like, hey, I know I don't want to be a doctor and I know I don't want to be a lawyer. And you know, I don't want to just get some like degree that's never going to help me get a career. So I landed on business. And then when I was in business school, I really struggled because in my second year, I had to pick a major. And I was like, I don't really want to do this. I don't really want to be an accountant. I don't really want to be like a finance major. And one of my roommates who I was living with, her dad worked in marketing. And so she was also doing a BCom and she was majoring in marketing. And she's like, I feel like you should choose marketing because it's the most creative actually considering switching into communications versus being in business. And you know, I'm glad that I didn't. I think everything worked out as it was meant to. But yeah, I went into marketing and I was like, okay, I like this, but I never really felt this like strong call or pull to like, hey, I really want to like work in this aspect of marketing. I was just like, oh, this seems like the most interesting part of business. So it's not
Yeah.
totally surprising that after a couple of years of that, I was like, this is not really what I want to be doing. Like, I think for me, when I got into the corporate job, it was very much like, is this, you know, I'm 22 and sure, I'm making decent money for a 22-year-old, but I'm like, is this what I'm going to do till I'm 65? Like, it just feels like, is this all to life? And I just felt like this sort of pull to like, there has to be something more. And I think that's where, you know, quitting my job, going traveling, felt like this
Yeah.
way to kind of explore and discover what was next. And then that decision to come back to Canada and get jobs that didn't like suck all the life out of me, I guess, per se. So we had like the opportunity to explore other things. So my husband and I
Yeah.
started a travel podcast, and that's, yeah, really where I was like exploring and discovering yoga. And I was really just following the things I was interested in hopes of like, hey, I'll figure out what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. And so the travel podcast, I remember I've listened to a couple of those, I remember. And so that came before your yoga podcast.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we started that in 2014. So we were like very early adopters of podcasting. And so I think that's why, like in 2016, when I was, you know, or 2015, I guess, kind of trying to figure out this yoga thing, it felt very like, hey, a podcast would be like a cool thing to start here because it's a great way to learn from other people. It's a great way
Yeah.
to have conversations with other people that you can also share with, you know, an infinite number of people. And so, yeah, podcasting was already like a familiar thing for me. I'd been doing it for 2 years at that point. So, um, yeah, and it was interesting still then in 2016, like a lot of people were like, sorry, what do you want to interview me for? Like, what is this about? It's crazy how much has changed in almost 10 years. Like podcasts are,
Yeah.
everyone knows what a podcast is now, right? Like my
Yeah.
grandparents know what podcasts are.
It's so true. And I remember when I first started listening to your podcast, I think it was maybe 2017,
hmm
and there weren't a lot of other yoga podcasts out there. I believe it was yours. Mado had her yoga teachers resources, maybe. And
And
then
Shannon Crow had hers.
Shannon Crow had it. Yeah. And then Andrea Ferretti from Yogaland.
hmm
And then Jay Brown, of course. So it was very few, very few out there. So it was really cool to be able to learn from listening to your podcast then. But it
Yeah.
seems like your degree in marketing and commerce did kind of come in handy when you were working for Lululemon. And also, I'm sure later when you started to build business in the yoga world as well. So I feel like it is kind of all connecting and things are kind of happened in the way that it was maybe meant to.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I've never regretted that degree or anything like that. I think that, yeah, it
Yeah.
just took me down a non-conventional path.
Yeah. And I think as you probably know that that's the skill sets I think a lot of yoga teachers are missing and they are seeking out. So I feel like, you were able to offer a lot of knowledge in that field for yoga teachers. So it seems like you moved to Atlanta because your husband got a full-time job there and you were trying to make a living as a full-time yoga teacher in Atlanta. That's when you started your podcast and realizing that $35 a group classes is not enough to make a living. And what happened after that? How did your teaching career develop or yoga career develop after that?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I was kind of in this period of like just trying as much stuff as I could and taking training. So in that period, I think I did a restorative teacher training, I did a prenatal teacher training. I was dabbling with teaching private, so just exploring, a lot of different
Yeah.
opportunities and different ways of kind of being a yoga teacher, I guess. And I
Uh-huh.
really found that for me, like the max amount of classes I could teach in a day to still feel like I had energy and wanted to do my own personal practice or exercise was 3. And so I was
Mhm.
kind of like, okay, like 3 classes a day, 5 days a week, like 15 classes, 15 times 35 is not going to come easy for me in my brain. But it's like, you
Mhm.
start doing that math. And I was just like, okay, I feel like this is not going to work for me full time.
Mhm.
And I was also drawn in other areas. I was doing my travel podcast. It was making a little bit of money. I
Mhm.
started MBO and that started drawing in money as well through sponsorship and then people who wanted to
Mhm.
do business coaching with me. And so I kind of just like leaned into like the other things I was doing. I've also
Mhm.
done a lot of work with studios. So one of the things I've done up until 2023 actually was working with yoga studios. So
Mhm.
I was working with one main studio at the time, and that was probably 10 hours a week of work. So that was kind of,
Mhm.
on top of the other things I was doing. So for me, I
Mhm.
was like teaching mostly part time and then had all these like other little projects on the go. I feel like for
Mhm.
me, I'm like my hands in lots of different pots. And so that kind of
Yeah.
worked for me. I think for other people,
Mhm.
it might feel a bit too much like pulled in multiple directions, but I really liked
Yeah.
that. And then, I was doing a lot of this work remote because the studio I worked for was in Canada and my podcasts were all
Uh-huh.
remote and stuff like that. And after my husband finished, he was on like a 1-year contract. We
Mhm.
decided to like take all of our work online and become nomadic. And
Mhm.
so in the end of 2016, the fall of 2016, we went to Asia and we spent 8 months over there. And so then I
Mhm.
was kind of like, how do I be a yoga teacher if I'm like not anywhere longer than a month or I'm only places
Mhm.
for, a little while? And so that's when I really started dabbling with like putting videos on YouTube, creating
Mhm.
courses, seeing if I could do
Mhm.
online privates. And it's interesting because that stuff is all like great opportunities for teachers now, but we have to remember this is pre-pandemic. So there
Mhm.
wasn't as much like online yoga stuff happening at that point. And so
Yeah.
I got like a little bit of traction with it, and just continued to do that probably through until the pandemic. Yeah, I feel like it was just like experimenting to see like how I could teach. And so every time I went back to Canada, which was basically every summer, I would be teaching in studios. And then, when I was traveling and stuff, I would do a lot more of like the remote stuff. And that's kind of how my career sort of evolved for a number of years. And then
Mhm.
in 2020, well, so in 2019, I traveled to Vancouver and I did a 300-hour yoga training through the Vancouver School of Healing Arts. When I finished that, I got offered to come on to teach in their teacher training, The Business of Yoga. And so I've been doing that since then. So I've taught their business of yoga program for, I guess, 5 years now, almost 6 years. And in 2020, when the pandemic happened, I felt like there was a lot of demand for, like, there was just a lot of demand for help taking things online. It's this thing that I'd been doing for so long. So I was helping studios, I was helping teachers. My coaching has never been as busy as it was during the pandemic. There was just lots of need for my resources. And then I kind of stopped teaching because it became like the kind of lowest income thing for me. There wasn't as many opportunities. And then I left Canada and kind of moved more full-time to Mexico, got pregnant with my first daughter. And yeah, I haven't made a full return to teaching since then. So I haven't been teaching hardly at all since 2020. Although I did just recently finish a yoga nidra teacher training. And I've been like, I feel like that's like really been my jam. So that's been, you said like maybe some projects on the side that I've been doing since I stopped actively working on MBM. And one of the things
I love it. I have so many questions to ask along the way of your journey. You said you were working remotely for yoga studios, and you said you were already working for yoga studios in Atlanta as well, and when you started traveling remotely as well. So what kind of job were you doing remotely? Because I feel like first thing that comes to me is like yoga manager, but they usually have to be there. So what kind of job were you doing for a studio?
Yeah, so one of the studios that I worked with that was based in Canada, I was like a co-manager with another girl, and she happened to live in the town. So she did a lot of the like hands-on at the studio stuff, and I was able to do a lot of the stuff remotely. So I did do a lot of like emails, administrative stuff, like past management, a lot of the stuff on like Mind Body Online, which was the software they used at the time, marketing, program coordination with like their workshops and all that type of stuff. And then I worked with another studio and I helped them with their web design and web management, email marketing, social media marketing, so more of their like digital marketing. So I do feel like there is a benefit to being in person. Like one of the things that was hard with the studio that I worked with entirely remotely is like I'd never been in the physical space. I still have never been in the physical space of that studio. And so it's a little bit harder if you don't know like the clientele. So everything was like based on like what they told me, photos I saw, all that type of stuff to figure out like how to help them and support them with their social media, with their email marketing. I think it did work though. I think it was fine. It's just, yeah, there are tricky things about that, but I do think there are things you can help with studios. And I think that I was lucky to find like some good fits with that were happy to have me be away and be flexible.
And it seems like a lot of work you that kind of grown into kind of shifted you from teaching less like group classes or one-on-one and more into mentoring or coaching, working with the studios or social media or podcasting, those kind of work. And did you ever feel like you missed teaching, or did you feel like this felt more right to kind of continue on the path of unteaching yoga related job?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel like I did miss teaching. I've always really loved teaching. I also think I guess the biggest thing I was prioritizing at that time was my lifestyle. And so being able to have the opportunities that allowed me to travel and live remotely, I think were the things that were like the biggest priority for me. And so that's kind of what I was prioritizing. I was making like weekly YouTube videos and I did have a couple of like private virtual clients. So I feel like I did still have like that kind of teaching stream. It wasn't until 2020 that really stopped. And I honestly didn't really miss teaching up until just this, I guess, like last kind of year when I've sort of felt like, hey, I think it'd be cool to step away from the role of teaching the business of yoga and step back into the role as teacher. And I think part of that's that I've just had little kids, I really haven't missed a lot of things because I've just been so like busy and full and there hasn't been a lot of like time to, I guess, like sit and miss something. And I think the other thing too about being a mom is that it's like so demanding physically, mentally, emotionally. And so I feel like I don't have, like at the end of the day, it's like I don't have a lot of reserves available. And so for me to think about like, hey, using these like minimal reserves that I have to offer great yoga classes, it doesn't feel like I have a lot of capacity for that. But it's interesting because through this journey of motherhood, the thing that's been like my biggest piece of self-care, my biggest practice of self-care has been yoga nidra. It's been like really, really life-changing for me. And so that's why I decided to sign up for a training for that and decided to offer that. And I was like, if I can help, other moms or other people who are feeling like the stressors of life, like I think that could be really nice. And so I've just been feeling like this kind of call to like step back into the role of a teacher in a different capacity. But I think also just with the pandemic, like just so much stuff happened with the yoga industry that I was just like, I just was not like wanting to be in studios and having to like social distance people and like sanitize people and wear masks. Like none of that was like my jam. And so I feel like for me, it was like, I'm happy to support like other people's businesses, and I'm happy to support teachers who need support, and I'm happy to support these studios that I work with, but I'm also like quite content to just kind of put some distance with teaching. Like it just didn't feel like something I wanted to do. It's been interesting because I never really thought that I would want to like step away from teaching, and then when I did step away from teaching and it like felt okay, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to come back to this. And so I've just kind of like, I don't know, ridden the wave of life, I guess you could say. It's just like, I'm just going to kind of follow my instincts and my passions. It hasn't led me astray so far. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so much I want to kind of, different path into conversation I want to get into, but I think I want to definitely talk about traveling. And you said that at the time, having a job or income that supports the lifestyle you wanted, which was this traveling nomadic lifestyle at the time. So having like more online income made more sense for you. I want to kind of talk about that part, 'cause I always had a desire to travel and teach. I've done a little bit of, traveling, finding a job on work trade and going somewhere and teaching abroad for a bit. And I got to interview a lot of yoga teachers who's also traveling and teaching. And I also got to interview the Nicole, who's one of the founders for Yoga Trade, which was really fun too. But I'm just curious. I think a lot of people listening also may have a dream or desire to travel and teach, or maybe have online income so that can, like you can allow you to have the lifestyle of traveling, slow travel, or having a nomadic life. Where did that desire come from? Because I definitely have that desire, and I always had. I grew up quite multicultural, and I grew up in different countries. So I always kind of had the desire to want to continue that. But I know it's not as easy as it may seem. There's also a lot of challenges to being traveling and teaching, or living a nomadic life. So I'm curious about that part of your experience, because you didn't go through the path of like yoga trade where you show up to places with a 3-month contract to teach at a resort or guest houses or hostels. You built your own income while you're traveling.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would love for you to share a little bit about that lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. So, first of all, I mean, loved to travel for as long as I can remember. I feel like just from the first time that I ever traveled and went somewhere, and the first place I went outside of Canada was the US. I think it was Disneyland, and then after that it was Mexico. And I grew up in like the 90s, so it was like we used to get the like travel books, and I'd like look at the hotels and all the cool places we could go and be like, Mom, can we go here? Can we go here? Can we go here? She's like, I don't know, maybe. And we didn't do like a ton of adventurous travel when I was younger, but once I finished high school, I was like, I want to travel. And my parents were like, go to school, then travel. And so I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. I was like saving money all through college to be able to travel. And so my husband and I spent 6 months traveling after we graduated, and did Europe and Southeast Asia and Australia and New Zealand, and this like whirlwind around the world trip. And I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's like a bit of like a drug. It's just like the more I do it, the more I want like more of it. And so I think it's just, yeah, I've always loved yoga since I started doing it, and it's definitely a big passion of mine. But I think I was just really wanted that lifestyle, and I think I worked, for that lifestyle to try to figure out how I could do it. And once I was, making enough money to do that, I was like, okay, it doesn't matter to me if I'm like in X yoga studio, like I can work from Chiang Mai, Thailand, like that's badass. So it was just priorities, I think, with that. And then for me, I just found like as I was building my business, it was the aspect that teaching remotely at that time was sort of like you're saying, it was more of like the trade, right? And so that meant that I had to go to certain places on somebody else's schedule, not really my own. And so while I didn't like discredit that, I guess I just never found like an opportunity that felt like a good fit for me. And I found that as I was building my business that, offering business coaching and working as a business coach and a career coach just was more lucrative for me than teaching yoga classes. And especially when I looked at some of the trades where it's like, okay, you're trading like accommodation and food for teaching. I was like, okay, well, that's great. But it's like, I'm not really like, do I have time to work on my other projects, time to make money? Like, I never was really like sold on that, I guess, for me. And I think it's because I had other things going on. What I do think is really cool, kind of on the other side of the pandemic, is that I think there's a lot of opportunities for yoga teachers to travel in the capacity that I did, that is not just work trades. Not that there's anything wrong if you want to do that, if you find opportunities that feel like a good fit for you. I think that's still great. But it's cool because you can offer live classes on platforms like Zoom. You can do recorded classes and put them like behind a paywall and offer a membership for them and create like a bank of like a library, basically a video library for people to go through at their own time. You can create online courses, either doing them live with people or on demand. You can do online privates. Like that's something that is much more common these days. Having like a membership that people can purchase where they get access to your whole business. Like you can basically be like a traveling yoga studio that like offers your services for people anywhere in the world. And I think this is like, had this existed when like 2016, when I was like becoming a digital nomad, it's interesting to think like, would my career have been different? Because I think there's a chance that that's like the route that I would have gone. But it was just a lot harder then. It was like most of my teaching was on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't make a lot of money off of YouTube, right? So yeah, it's different now. There's a lot of opportunities for teachers, which is cool.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I also started my online yoga studio during the pandemic. And although it has kind of gotten smaller compared to the height of the pandemic, I still have it to this day. I still have a small community of students that I teach to. And when I lived in Peru for 4 months teaching teacher training, it was a job I found on Yoga Trade. But I was able to continue my online yoga studio while I'm in Peru. I had a mentorship program for yoga teachers that I was able to continue. So it is nice that you can take these work with you wherever you are. So yeah, definitely I can see how you said there's more opportunities for yoga teachers to be able to have that kind of lifestyle if they choose to.
Yeah, and it's cool that you've got that. So you've just like backed up the fact that I'm not just like spitting information at people. Like this actually works for yoga teachers. You can actually do this.
Yeah.
I also think like to this, it's also cool because your students can travel too. Like I think one of the things, the studio that I worked at for ages that was in a mountain town in Alberta, we saw a lot of like seasonal shifts. So there was lots of like older clientele who paused their membership so they could go like do their snowbird thing in Florida or Arizona or Mexico or whatever. And now that the studio has like hybrid classes online and a whole like video bank, it's like they don't pause anymore. They like take the studio with them. And so I think, having stuff online not only gives you as the teacher an opportunity to travel, but it also gives your students the opportunity to work with you from anywhere, which I think is cool.
Yes, so true. Great point. I want to kind of switch gears and talk about your podcast.
Okay.
As a fellow podcaster who's a newbie, just about to hit 2 years, and you've done it for a long time, even though your MBO is no longer, which makes me sad. But I'm also happy that all those like amazing recordings are still up there for people to listen to and learn from. So I want to hear about like. I know it was more rare back then. Not many people knew about podcasts or had a podcast. So that's when you started it. I'm curious to see how did the growth happen? Because it seems like you said you had some sponsorship. You were able to find like coaching clients from it. So it seems like there was a lot of success in that you were able to get, and a lot of I guess business side, it fed your business as well. So I'm curious to hear about that journey, because it seems like maybe because there are so many podcasts now, I feel like it's a little bit harder to monetize your podcast. And although I'm not doing it only for monetizing, I think it's great that I get to speak to people like you. And it's almost like I get to learn so much from the people I interview and get to share it with others. There's so much beautiful things that I love about it. And I'm curious about your success of podcasts that you had in the past.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's interesting because there was less people listening to podcasts like back in 2016, but there were less podcasts, like you said. So, I really was like, you could count on like two hands, probably how many yoga podcasts there were. And because my podcast is so niche on the business of yoga, it was really like kind of like became known for the business of yoga. And, I was able to connect with some of those other people who were doing the same thing. Like Shannon Crow and I we've, interacted lots over the years, and Mado as well. Like, they're both really wonderful, teaching wonderful things. And so being able to, cross promote and like, meet other podcasters, I think was really cool. I think as podcasting became more popular, I was in a good position because I already had like a decent bank of episodes. So all of a sudden there's companies that are like, hey, this is like a great form of marketing. And so a lot of companies, maybe not a lot, like some companies were, reaching out being like, hey, I'd love to do ads on your show. And as I had more listeners, I was able to charge more and that type of thing. And actually got to the point where I was like working with a lot of companies and I was like, I just really would like to narrow this down. And so it's like 2018 or 2019, I can't remember exactly. I pitched Offering Tree on becoming like my solo sponsor, and they were into that idea. And so I was like, I need you to pay more so that I don't have to take other ads, but in return, you'll be like the only sponsor on the show. And so I really kind of narrowed in on that partnership. And I feel like that was nice because they were, they partnered with me through to the end. Like even they sponsored my last season of the show that I just did this past fall. And so I feel like it was like timing a little bit. Like I had a little bit of luck with my timing just because I think when people like looked at podcasts, it was like, okay, this one's like kind of established. She's been doing it for a while. She's like had some like good guests on there. So I had like good downloads and stuff like that. But yeah, it is interesting. Like since the pandemic and, I've taken maternity leaves and stuff like that, I feel like my podcast did kind of like peak and then my downloads did go down a little bit because I think now it's like there are so many other podcasts to listen to. Whereas I had, people who listened religiously every Monday when episodes came out, and now it's like they have so many other choices. So, and I think that's great. I think having choices is really great. And I think it's cool that there's other people podcasting now, but just like pros and cons to it, right? So yeah, I kind of thought of my podcast as like the learning journey for myself. That was really why I started it. I didn't start it as like something that would be monetary. I had no idea where it would go. I think if you'd asked me in 2016, like, hey, will you be wrapping this up in 10 years with 400 episodes? I probably would have been like, there's no way I could do 400 episodes on the business of yoga. I self-published a book in there. And so just like a lot of stuff happened that I just never could have predicted. And I feel like it's been like a really cool, surprising, unpredictable journey. But just like you, I started with like, hey, I have a curiosity, I have a passion, I want to learn from other people. And the rest of it kind of just unfolded. And then in the end, it kind of became sort of like, I guess, top of my sales funnel, you could say. Like, this is how people discover me. Then they maybe join like my free Facebook community. Then they get like maybe on my email list. And then maybe they buy a course. And then, maybe they decide to work with me one-on-one. And that's kind of like, how it went and how I was able to kind of grow and build my business.
Yeah, I remember I use Offering Tree for my online yoga studio members. So
I saw that. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Definitely, because I think almost everybody I was listening to on podcasts was also affiliated with the Offering Tree. But I mean, they're also a great website to begin with. It's not only I hear them, but I can like really say from my experience, they're a really great company. I mean, I don't work with them, but in terms of being their client, they're such a great company and websites for people like me, online yoga studio owners to have. So yeah, definitely love them. So I'm so curious about your podcasting. It seemed like there was a lot of success and a lot of amazing things happened, but you were releasing weekly for a while, but you have taken some breaks along the way. Maybe share the challenging side of it. What has been challenging? I'm sure it's not easy to release weekly. I know some podcasts have moved into more seasonal releasing so they can have some breaks, which I'm thinking of doing because I've been releasing once a week for almost 2 years at the end of this month. And I think after end of this month, I'm thinking of maybe making it a seasonally or not committing to weekly release just because it can be hard and challenging. So I'm curious to know about some of the challenges you had. And I know with your first pregnancy, you, I think, pre-recorded and had it scheduled to be released while you were on maternity leave, which I'm sure is not easy to do. And also, like, what led you to the decision of choosing to stop and beyond?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of touched on some of the challenges. Like, I think it's just a lot every week. It's like there's so much that goes into it from especially if you're a guest-based episode or a guest-based podcast, but even if you're not, there's like planning the episodes, the topics, actually sitting down to record them. So if you have a guest, that's obviously coordinating with somebody else's schedule. And then there's like the editing of the show, the production, getting it all ready to go. And then the show comes out and there's like the actual promotion of it, which for me was like, Instagram and Facebook, posting in our Facebook community, sending out an email, putting a post up on Pinterest. So just like a lot of stuff goes into that. And we would do like a couple of posts throughout the week as well. So there'd be like, I think maybe 2 posts went out during the week about the episode plus the email newsletter. And so when you think about like you're posting about that week's episode on Friday and then it's like the new episode needs to go out on Monday and you like want a life and you have other things, like it's just a lot. I did all my own production and marketing and everything until the end of 2019. I think at that point I decided to hire somebody on. And so I had somebody who edited my show through until just this last season that I did, just since it was like 5 episodes, I just did it myself. And I had somebody who worked with me part-time as like a VA, like a virtual assistant. And so that was a game changer. Like once I had like somebody who all I had to do was pick my guests, tell my assistant like and edit my calendar. So pick my guests, tell my assistant my link's ready to go. This is who I'd like to interview. And then show up for the interviews and do them, like do my research for them and show up. I was like, wow, I have so much more capacity and like brain power to do so many other things, which I feel like was just really, I don't know, kind of like divine timing because it's like the pandemic happened a few months after that. I had like so much work during that time, as I mentioned before. And then I got pregnant with my oldest daughter the spring of 2021. So kind of like still in pandemic time. And then, I was pregnant and had a baby and all those types of things. And, it was because I had help that I was able to, before she arrived, like backlog episodes. I think I backlogged like 4 months worth of episodes. And then those were just ready to like be edited and go out. And I just had like 2 people that I really trusted to do that. And basically all I did was, my assistant knew I wasn't on email. She just texted me if I needed something. I think all I did was like send invoices for sponsorship during that period, which was really great. But when I went back to work after my daughter was born, so I had 4 months recorded, which sounds like a lot, but it's also like not a lot. I was happy to be back at work. I really felt like excited to be back podcasting. But kind of over time, as she got bigger, I felt like I was pulled in 2 different directions. Like when I was with her, I would be like thinking about work, like there'd be like work circling in my brain. And then when I was working, I would like hear her with her nanny or whatever. And I'd be like, I'm missing these like key moments of like my daughter's life. Like is this that important? And so I had this very weird, like thinking about work when I'm with her, but then I'm doing work and I'm thinking about my daughter, which is just that probably just sums up the experience of motherhood in total. And so when I got pregnant with my second daughter, my husband and I were very intentional about I was like, I want more time off work. I don't want to backlog episodes. Like it goes by quick. And I just really want the only division I want is between my 2 kids. I don't want division with something else. And so through his job and his work, we're really fortunate that we were able to make that happen. And my second daughter was a more difficult baby. Like she didn't sleep independently. And again, I was like pulled between a toddler and a baby. I was much more tired. I was very depleted. And I just was like, I don't know if this is what I want to do anymore. Like, I just feel like maybe I'm feeling like the draw towards something else. And so I kind of just sat on it for a long time. Like if you kind of look at my feed, it's like, hey, I'm having another baby. Like I'll be back soon. And then it's like, I kind of just go dark for like over a year. And during that time, I was just trying to figure out what was next. And that's when I was doing my yoga nidra training, and I just was feeling like, hey, I'm ready to step into something else. And so for me, I just thought like I could just leave it like this. I don't ever have to tell anybody what's going on. But I thought, I've got at that point like almost 400 episodes of content. Like this is good stuff. This is good stuff that can change the lives of yoga teachers, like really help them create businesses, be successful. Like so many yoga teachers kind of do the whole like go into a studio, don't get paid enough, feel really burnt out, and then just find another career. And I think it's really unfortunate because we lose a lot of like really talented yoga teachers because the career is difficult. And I feel like I've just interviewed so many people who can help them, right? Like I have so many resources that can help them. And so I wanted to have something that kind of close the podcast, but also like direct people to the various resources. And that's kind of how the Send Off series was born and why I decided to do it.
Thank you for sharing that. By the way, I have your book. I was one of them. I don't know if you remember, but I was one of the one who emailed. You said like first 5 person I received the email.
Yeah, you got a free copy, right?
Yeah. So I have your book. So I think it's amazing you were able to kind of consolidate all the interviews you've done in the past into this book and resources for yoga teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And, one of the podcast episode that is very memorable for me is the one you had, I think her name is Kaya. She's an Ayurvedic practitioner and yoga teacher, and she did a podcast episode with you on the topic of Dharma. And amazing episode. I love that one. I've gone back and listened to it many times. But in that episode, it's before you had your second baby, so you had your daughter at the time, and you were asking her this conflict that you were feeling of, is there two dharma? One dharma is being a mom, and another dharma is this work and with the yoga teachers that you love. And I just remember her response was so beautiful. But do you feel much more settled and content with where you are in your life with like what you have chosen to pursue and focus on to where you were like 5 years ago?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Kaya's amazing. She's so insightful and she just has a beautiful presence. I adore her. I think when my first daughter was born, I was really like, I don't know, just kind of like I was like swimming in the middle of an ocean by myself. And it was like my work was like the only lifesaver that was there. And so I just like kind of grabbed onto it. I wasn't intentional about like, is this what I want to keep doing? It's just what I had been doing and I had no plan to change it. And I think motherhood was just like a big life transition for me, a big like I guess personal transition in terms of like who I am. And so I think that as I just got more comfortable with my role as mom and more comfortable with myself as a mother, I was able to kind of step into like that more fully. And I think when I did that, I was like, the work that I've been doing has impact and it's important. But for me, it's like nothing is more important than my kids. Is your question or not? But
Yeah. I thank you for sharing that. I think the podcast episode I really loved. So I love that you're very open and vulnerable in that podcast that were being shared with others. So I really appreciate that. I want to talk about this, I guess, 2 questions, very different. First one, I want to get to where, like Mexico, where you have chosen to stay and raise your kids there. But before that, maybe a little bit about VA and assistant. Like you say, you were editing, releasing, promoting everything on your own for your podcast and probably everything else that you were doing as a business owner. And I think a lot of yoga teachers listening, I'll say it for myself, I'm in that place of like, I'm doing everything on my own and it feels kind of quite overwhelming. And there's so much to do, so much you could be doing. And, you're always kind of being chased by like all the things you could do to build your business, but you don't have time for it. You also want to have downtime, blah, 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 all that stuff. So when did you think you were ready to hire help and VA or any kind of help? Because I feel like I can say it for myself that do I hire somebody to help me or do I do it on my own? Obviously, I'm going to make less money if I'm paying somebody else to do some of the work. But so what made you come to clarity that you wanted to hire somebody?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I was at a point where I just felt like, hey, I'm doing so much like admin day to day that I don't have a lot of like space to kind of narrow in on sort of like my zone of genius.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have, when it came to like, hey, I have to turn down clients because I don't have capacity for them because I'm doing all this other stuff. It was like, hey, if I can bring a coaching client on, that can like help me pay for a virtual assistant. And so it just came from like I have enough money to like maybe pay a little bit. And let's keep in mind, I had somebody like 5 hours a week, $20 an hour. My budget was like $500 a month. So I wasn't like paying big bucks or anything like that. It was just a very little amount of help to, help with scheduling and some email admin stuff and somebody getting on social media and posting for me, and being distracted for an hour, and somebody who could edit my podcast. And I actually met with a dear friend of mine, Renee Claire. She was doing a lot of work around this at that time. And so I had a consultation with her, and she just helped me identify like the tasks that no longer serve me. And she was like, if you could open up 5 hours a week for you, like, what would that look like? And it kind of seems like, oh, it's not much, but that could be a workout every day, or that could be a new client every day, or a new class that you can bring on, right? Like it does add up. And so as I was talking with her and identifying this, I was like, oh, I like know who I want to hire. And so immediately after the call, I reached out to this person that I knew, and I was like, hey, do you want to work with me? And she was like, yes. And I was like, okay, great. That was easy. And she worked with me through until I went on maternity leave with my second daughter in the spring of 2024. I went through a couple different podcast editors, but it was always like people referred by other people. And I always had good experiences with them. So yeah, I think it's like you kind of know when you've just got a lot on your plate and you're having to turn down other opportunities because of that. And I really do feel like it's, yes, you're putting like money out, but you also have to think about like when you take these things off of your plate and you make space, you have room for like other stuff to come in. And so it's always kind of remembering that a little bit too. That getting rid of some stuff on your plate will make space for energetically for like other stuff to be welcomed in. Because I think when we're just like so kind of like bogged down with the day-to-day stuff, it's like there's just no space for anything else. And so I think having that space is really nice. And I really liked having people like do that for me. I remember like the first week I was like, oh, this is so nice. And then like I said, I did all the production for the send-off series. And I was like, oh wow, I like forgot how much work this is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh shoot, I like haven't posted on social media, or like, oh shoot, I forgot to send an email out. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, but that's a great advice. I think sometimes it's that like we just, just gotta do it sometime just to see like, okay, 5 extra hours a week, what that can make a difference. And also I love what you said of, so you can spend your time in your zone of genius, because sometimes some of the tasks some of the tasks that I have to do to keep my business afloat is very like no brainer tasks that like I could be spending that time doing something else that could like move more needles in my business.
Yeah.
Or creating a course or brainstorming ideas on what kind of class series to make. So yeah, I definitely get it. And it's really hard to actually do it. So it's a good reminder. Thank you.
Yeah, and you had actually asked me about seasons before, and I had a thought, but we didn't totally get there. So I'll just add this in here too, because I think that it's relevant. Like, I think for me, I started with seasons. So the podcast started as seasons. Then in like, I think season 3 just like didn't end for like, I don't know, many years. And then I kind of got to the point where I was like, hey, I think I need to have some more breaks built in. Like it gives people to catch up on episodes. It gives me like breaks as well. And I do feel like one of the things that can be helpful when you're doing all the stuff yourself is having breaks. And it's like, whether or not that's like, hey, that's when you work on other projects, like creating those courses, or maybe that's when you like schedule your interviews and you do that during the like, season break, and then you can like work on the production as it goes out. Like I do feel like that can help a lot when you're doing all of that yourself too, because I just feel like when you're just going nonstop, it can sometimes start to feel like, hey, I'm like on a hamster wheel a little bit. So yeah, I've experimented with both of those, and I do feel like it can be helpful when you've got a lot on your plate to be like, okay, we're doing like a 20 episode season or a 10 episode season, and then I have a break.
Yeah, totally. I definitely do think releasing once a week is not sustainable. I kind of wanted to push through just because the beginning of the podcast. But even like seeing that what Jay Brown actually have been releasing weekly for whatever years, which is amazing. But if I see like Andrea from Yogaland or you or Mado and even Sharon, like you all had seasons or scaled back, or even you and Sharon around the same time have also chosen to step back from podcasting. And even Mado releases much less frequent numbers now. That's kind of when I was like, I want to talk to them. I would love to hear their journey of how they got to where they are, because it's for somebody outside like us. It feels like you and Sharon spend so much time to build it, and to step back seemed like why? But I think to each is their own, and it's also such a challenging thing, and it's also okay to change directions and pivot in your career as well. So I really appreciate you sharing all of that. This will be probably the last topic of the question I want to ask is, you have chosen Mexico as a place to settle down with your husband and have your kids there and raise your kids there. So I want to hear what made you choose Mexico, and also how has it been, and also raising a child, I guess a third culture child is what they're called, which I was also kind of a third culture child too. So I'm just so curious, what is the experience of living in another country and raising a child there and being an expat in another country? And is this something you see yourself continue for a while, or is there some other plans and places you want to move to?
Yeah. So after we spent 8 months in Asia, we were like really tired from bumping around. Asia has, for Canadian citizens, most places we could only stay like 30 or 60 days. I think Japan has 90 days for visas. And so we were just tired after that. And we came back to Canada for the summer, and we were kind of thinking like, where should we go? And Mexico has like 6-month tourist visas, plus it's on North America time zones, which makes things just a little bit easier. We weren't working like a ton of crazy hours, but definitely like lots more early mornings and like late nights. And so we were like, let's try being on North American time zone. Let's go somewhere we can stay 6 months. And so we moved to Mexico City in 2017. We ended up spending almost a year there with a visa run in between to Panama. And we just really loved Mexico, like speaking Spanish. We already had kind of a base for Spanish. So being able to become more fluent in Spanish was nice. And then just the culture, the people, the food, the proximity to other places to travel, particularly Canada and the US, was really nice. And so Mexico was just in our rotation from I guess 2018 through 2021. And then when the pandemic happened, we were actually living in Panama, and we were considering putting like roots down in Panama, doing residency, and then things just got crazy with the pandemic. We went back to Canada, and then Canada was like kind of gearing up for like another lockdown. It was getting close to winter. We were like, do we want to stay here? And so we're like, where could we go? There wasn't like a lot of places where we could travel to, but Mexico was still welcoming tourists. And so we went to Mexico, and we were like, we should probably like do our residency if we're going to keep being here. And so we applied for temporary residency. We got approved. So in 2021, we became temporary residents of Mexico. And then the spring of 2021, I got pregnant with my oldest daughter, who's almost 4 now. And we were like, okay, well, we need to decide where we're going to have this baby. Like we're nomadic. We'd been bumping around Mexico. We'd been in like Puerto Vallarta. We'd been in Merida. We'd been in Mexico City. And we'd been to the city we live in a couple times. It has a really nice climate. It's a little smaller than Mexico City. And I was able to find a midwife who had a birthing center and did home births, which was what I was ideally looking for. And so we went and met her, and she felt really aligned with like my views on birth. And so we were like, cool, we're going to Canada. We're going to go get our car, and then we'll be back in the fall. And she was like, okay, I guess see you then. I think there's probably a part of her that was like, I'm never going to see these people again. But no, we came back and we had our first daughter here, and it just felt really good to have a home base. We like moved into a house and started building a community and just kind of settled into expat life. In Mexico, you get your temporary residency for, you have to have it for 4 years. So you renew it after 1 year, and then you renew it for 3 years, and then you can become a permanent resident. But when you have a baby in Mexico, you can change right to permanent residency. So we were able to, through her citizenship, become permanent residents. So that was really easy. I think part of us was like, do we have the baby in Canada or do we have the baby in Mexico? And our kids were both Canadian citizens. So we were like, our kids will get Canadian citizenship regardless. And Mexico does birthright citizenship. And so we're like, if we can give our kids two passports from birth, like that's amazing, right? So that's kind of what led to that. And then, yeah, we built a community here, had friends, and got pregnant with another baby and decided to stay. And we are actually gearing up to spend a bit of time outside of Mexico. We're actually going to move out of our house and travel for a little bit and just see how that feels with our two little ladies. And I don't know what's next. I don't know if we'll come back to Mexico more permanently, find somewhere else. So we're like heading into a little bit of a like life change in the new year. So, but I really do love Mexico. It's been a great place to have little kids.
Yeah. Oh, I love that to hear that you're, gearing up to travel with your family of four now. Like I said, I listened to a couple of your other traveling podcasts, and it was so fascinating. One of the podcasts I listened to was this, like, I guess, international school for family who choose to live this nomadic life. And you can find a school for your kids in Bali, and you can find in, like, I don't know, it's Costa Rica. Like, so that was like super eye-opening for me when I heard that. I'm like, wow, that there are, places for like digital nomadic family who want to like travel every 3-4 months to a different countries and still find community and place for kids to interact and learn and all of that. So that was really cool. So I'm excited that you will be also traveling with your family next. That's kind of your next thing. So happy to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. It's it's a little bit scary, and it's also really exciting just to see what the next chapter holds. And we're kind of like, if we miss Mexico, we'll just come back. But we're ready for a little bit of a change because we've traveled quite a bit over the last like 4 years, but definitely not like nomadic like we were before. And so I think we're just feeling like the pull to something a little bit different and whatnot.
Yeah, I love that. I think I was inspired by more unconventional way of living or having a family or living and studying. So I always really loved hearing and learning about other families, very interesting stories and journey that they have taken. So really wish your family good luck with that. I'm sure it'll be a great experience for your little ones, especially once they're older. If they can, that experience it's gonna be a positive influence on them.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to like show your kids the world. And I think it's been really cool to be like living in a country that's not where my husband and I grew up. Like, my daughter who's almost 4 speaks completely fluent Spanish as well as fluent English. So it's like cool to hear her say something that sounds like super Mexican and then like turn around and say something to us that's like, just like native English as well. And that's, that wasn't my experience growing up. So it's like been really cool to like give them different experience.
Yes, I think that's really cool. And I wish there was more examples like that because typically we don't really see or hear about or learn about other, unconventional family out there. And maybe on YouTube you can find really cool family doing cool things. But I think it's really cool to when we can actually meet and have a conversation with the family who's choosing slightly more alternative lifestyle. So
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah, thank you for sharing all of your yoga journey. I guess I want to ask this to end with, and I want to be respectful of your time. So since you kind of have, not kind of, you have stopped your MBO podcast and you say you're kind of heading more into teaching yoga nidra, where are you headed now? Like, what are you envisioning? And it could be completely not related to yoga as well, but where are you headed? And also, what do you want to kind of bring more, what kind of energy you want to bring more into your life and also your career? And then what are you still are offering that you want the listeners to find you? How can they find you? Is there anything you want to share in terms of any offerings that you have for them?
Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, MBOM is still, you can go listen to all the episodes. So I'm assuming if you're here, you're a yoga teacher and you're interested in yoga stuff. So it's mbomyoga.com, mbomyoga.com, or you can just search Mastering the Business of Yoga on any podcast app and you'll find all the episodes. You can kind of just see what excites you and go from there. Like I said, we've got a very big backlog of archived episodes to listen to. And yeah, it's it's Mastering the Business of Yoga on Instagram. So you can follow along there. I'm not super active on there, but you can go look at old posts and stuff like that. And then things that I'm kind of currently doing. So we've also not been doing our travel podcast since my second daughter arrived. So I've been like I've been kind of like low key trying to revive our Instagram account. So if you're interested in travel and specifically travel with kids, it's the World Wonders podcast. And then for me, I've got everything kind of on Substack. So it's amandakingsmith.com. No, amandakingsmith.substack.com is where you can find me. And so that's like, I'm going to be writing about our travels there. I've been writing about motherhood. You can find my yoga nidras on there. So I feel like that's kind of a good all-encompassing place for me these days.
Okay. And I'm excited to hear that I didn't know about your Substack, so I'm excited to go check that out. But you're thinking of starting more of the traveling content, because I would love to stay up to date with how you travel with family of 4 to different places and how that goes, because I think that's a personal interest of me. So I think that'll be really fun to follow along. So thank you so much. I'll definitely link all of that on the show notes so people can find you and connect with you and, read your stuff if they desire. And I also want to say thank you so much for coming on to Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. It's really amazing to be able to speak with you one-on-one. Like I said, I've listened to your podcast for so long that it's really, really amazing to be able to chat with you like this. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This has been really, really nice, really fun. So thanks for inviting me on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast episode, the conversation I had with Amanda. I hope this was an interesting conversation for you to listen to. I hope you go check out her podcast. Although she has moved on from that chapter of her life, she's not releasing new episodes on MBOM anymore, but there are hundreds and hundreds of episodes on her podcast that is still relevant and useful for yoga teachers. So go check her podcast out. I'll also put the link to everything that she shared on the show notes as well. So thank you so much, Amanda, for coming on. It was a dream come true for me to be able to interview you and other fellow podcasters that I really respect. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm so excited for your next chapter of life. Before I let you go, 2 quick reminders. Early bird discount for my Nicaragua yoga retreat is on right now. It ends on January 7th, so go check the link on the show notes to sign up for my yoga retreat. There is a payment plan available. You can break up your payment plans for the retreat in 4 different payment plans. So I hope you can make it to this beautiful, beautiful ethical yoga retreat in Nicaragua 2026, end of July to beginning of August. All the information will be on my website about the retreat. Come with your friends. This trip is going to be an amazing experience. Another reminder is that mentorship for yoga teachers, the application for 2026 is open. The mentorship for 2026 is going to start in January. So you have a couple more weeks. Go apply for that mentorship program so you are ready to continue growing and evolving as a yoga teacher starting January. That is it. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe, anything you can do on whatever platform you're listening to. That helps me out so much. And most importantly, share this podcast with your friends, your yoga teacher, your yoga friends, or share it on social media. And you can always tag me at Reika Yoga, ReikaYoga. You can also message me on Instagram, Reika Yoga, for any questions, any feedback, any comments you have about the podcast. And if you're not a social media user, you can message me through my website. My website is www.reikayoga.com. So that is it from me for now. I hope you can join me on the Nicaragua Yoga Retreat in 2026, or join me in the mentorship program so we can continue learning. I hope you have a lovely holiday week, and talk to you next week. Bye.